So I know I'm going to get a lot coming back to me for this, and hey, that's why I love making videos on this channel, because I love when people have different takes and aren't afraid to call me out on my takes. We can have a discussion. I love it. Keep it, don't cross the line, but I love having those types of discussions here. And here, to me, seeing what Shane Wright is doing in the AHL, which, by the way, I was wrong about. I really thought he would go in the AHL. I thought it might hurt his confidence even more. I still maintain my point, though, even though he's lighting up the AHL, that I think that he's got in the back of his head, okay, well, I wasn't able to really translate it super well to the NHL before. Will I be able to do it now? That doubt is always going to be in his mind, I think. And scoring 8,000 goals in the AHL won't change that, right? Only scoring in the NHL will. But, hey, that's neither here nor there. Today we're talking about SLAFKOVSKY, and a recent article I saw on Montreal Hockey Now mentioning him and the World Juniors, which, hey, to me, this is a tournament that's happening next month, not too far from Montreal. It's not like he has to go to the Czech Republic. He just has to go over to Halifax, and he could play for Team Slovakia. And the more I read this article, the more it made sense, and I'm totally on the train of send Juraj to the World Juniors with Team Slovakia, and hopefully his buddy Filip Mesar will be there as well. And Dvorsky, who's going to be a very high pick in the upcoming draft. Who knows? Maybe he'll end up being a Montreal Canadian as well. I think a line of SLAFKOVSKY, Dvorsky, and Mesar would light up the World Juniors. And look, by no stretch of the imagination is SLAFKOVSKY terrible. I've been seeing people on Marinero's podcast calling in saying that SLAFKOVSKY's awful. And I'm like, what Slav are you watching? I mean, he hasn't been great. Okay? He's not lighting the league on fire, but I think he's been solid, and I think he's developing. And for an 18-year-old kid who just is being thrown into the North American game this year, I think he's progressing at a pretty good pace. I like the rate at which he's developing in, but I do think that, again, if you send him to the World Juniors, it doesn't mean he's done in the NHL this season. It doesn't mean you can't bring him back. It doesn't mean it's just done for him for the year. He has to stay and go over to Europe for the next 20 years. You got to lock him in a jail cell. It doesn't mean that. What it means is he gets a 2-week tournament where he can really, really go out and light things up and feel like the best player on the ice again. And, okay, selfishly, yes, so part of me wants to see either SLAFKOVSKY versus Shane Wright, or SLAFKOVSKY versus Bedard, or SLAFKOVSKY with Mesar and Dvorsky. Yes, I do want to see those matchups selfishly, but it's also just a really good measure of his development, playing against guys his own age and feeling like the best player again. He can be the hotshot over with Slovakia in there, and I know he's a first overall pick and he's playing for the Montreal Canadiens. It doesn't get more hotshot than that. But I just mean on the ice. Because on the ice, let's be real, Slav right now is playing like a third liner roughly. I don't want to say fourth liner because I do think he's good enough to be third liner right now. But that's just what he is. But if he goes to the World Juniors, he could absolutely be the best player in the tournament. And if he was MVP at the Olympics, why can't he get MVP at the World Juniors? And for the people who are going to bring up the injury thing, oh, he could get injured. Look, man, don't you think he could get injured in an NHL game almost the exact same amount as in a World Junior game? If you look at the injuries in 2 weeks in the NHL schedule and 2 weeks in a World Junior schedule, do you really think the amount of injuries is that different? I really, really don't think so. The kid's already been injured in NHL action. Do you really think not sending him to the World Juniors will protect him from injury? Not at all. That is not a reason to not send him to the World Juniors. It's because of quote-unquote injury, right? I mean, I know teams, it's different when they say it because they want to protect their asset, and if their player gets injured, they want it to be on their watch. So that's why teams do that. But just in general, people saying, no, don't send SLAFKOVSKY to the World Juniors because he might get injured, that one just doesn't make sense, okay? And if you're also thinking about you said about Shane Wright that if he goes to the AHL, it's not going to help him fix his problems scoring in the NHL, and you're saying the opposite with SLAFKOVSKY? Okay, first of all, Slafkovsky actually has a goal in the NHL. Well, 3 of them to be exact. And Slafkovsky, well, yes, at times he's struggled. He's looked a lot more solid, a lot more steady, a lot more stable than Shane Wright in the NHL. And at least Slav knows he can come up and he can play in a pretty steady role in the NHL, and he can continue to grow. And again, I think it's different in the World Juniors as far as the stage goes, because this tournament is so huge for so many of these countries. Like Finland, the World Juniors are basically the Super Bowl for Finland, right? So, I mean, it's such a huge tournament. Here in Canada, it's a holiday tradition. Christmas, Boxing Day. I mean, you just watch the World Juniors as a tradition every year around the holidays. I love that time of year, and every kid in Canada loves this tournament so much, and it's rubbed off on the U.S. counterparts, because the kids who play for the U.S. in the World Juniors, they know how big it is in Canada, and they want to spoil the party bad, so it's huge for them too, right? So there's so many nations that it's so big for, that I think playing on the big stage for these guys will absolutely be a shot in the arm. It's different than going and playing in the AHL, which, hey, I went to one of the games, Coachella Valley, for Shane Wright against the Wranglers, and it was like, what, 1,500 people, maybe 2,000 people, whereas in Halifax, you're going to get like 13,000 crazy Maritimers going nuts for Canada, and you're trying to win a gold medal. It's different, man. I'm telling you. And I mean, there's so many Habs fans in Halifax and in Nova Scotia. They would be dying to see Juraj Slafkovsky. He would have a fan club following him around over there. So I'm just telling you, I think it's the right move. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments down below, of course. As usual, I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.